And each person identifies with their mental position. This is how it is. No, it's not. Yes. So, and this has been going on for many thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, and even intensifying that identification with thinking. Intensifying. It was a necessary stage in human evolution. It all started with the apple. Because the apple came from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It is the arising of thought. Yes, no, right, wrong, yes. You can tell the difference between this and that. Thought is the ability to separate, to cut up into little pieces, to analyze. And humanity had to go through it. It was an evolutionary stage, and I'm saying it was, although we are still in it, to a large extent, but we are coming out of it. And as this evolutionary stage reaches its end, the dysfunction increases. Because simply it's coming to an end. When it no longer works, that's all. It doesn't work anymore for survival. For a long time, it helped humans to survive. They could think about how to make a trap and do this, and then it has served its purpose. It becomes dysfunctional, just as the caterpillar becomes dysfunctional just before it becomes a butterfly. Life doesn't work anymore as a caterpillar. It's getting too hard. I can't crawl anymore. But of course something in the caterpillar says, no, I'm not going to change. That's just what I am. Or is fearful. What's going to happen to me? So the conflict in the Middle East is just one example of a dysfunction in the human mind, which this writer expressed in those words. He called it the inability to accommodate a competing narrative, which means to see another perspective and see, and to recognize thought, every thought, as a fragment, not the truth, a fragment. So whenever you see, whatever you can say about another human being is a temporary truth, a temporary relative fragment. You can say he's the worst criminal I've ever met. Okay, this is one perspective. May be true at this moment, and you may not have seen him interacting with his child. You may not have seen him at the age of 6. You may not see him in 20 years' time when he's enlightened, become free through his suffering. But thought fixes everything. It wants to fix things. This is how it is. Conclusions, premature conclusions that you draw concerning people, events, situations. And the mind is looking out for that. It's waiting whenever this mind-made entity meets someone. It's already beginning to judge. How does this person fit into my thought structures? And then 5 minutes later, it has an opinion. And often, then that opinion is there, it's fixed. And then it's repeated to others. And then people cling to their opinions. It's part of who I think I am. Me as mind. So the movement that is happening in human consciousness, happening now for the first time on a wider scale because it has to happen for the species to survive, is a movement out of thought, out of identification with thought. The arising of something within you that is deeper than thought. Now, what is thought? Thought is one of the many forms that consciousness takes. Consciousness in humans manifests to a large extent as thought. Consciousness manifests, the one consciousness manifests as an entire universe. Flowers, trees, the planet, animals, temporary formations, galaxies. And in humans, it becomes thought. And to realize the vastness that is there underneath thought. And that is the arising of a new dimension of consciousness. It doesn't mean that you are not going to think anymore. Thought still comes. But complete belief in every thought that comes, that doesn't happen anymore. In other words, as this begins, you're beginning to have a new relationship to thought. You can see thought that happens inside you. The reactivity of thought, very strong. The reactivity of the thought made me. What's the next thing I can react to strengthen myself, to have a little enemy, at least for a few moments, and in having a little enemy, which can be a situation that I'm complaining about, a person, having a little enemy for a moment makes me feel more strongly, I can sense who I am. You did that to me. It is satisfying to the entity, the egoic entity. For a moment it feels stronger in its sense of self. Every time it complains about something, there's a contraction in my sense of self and also a strengthening of the mind-made entity. And then it's looking out, what's the next thing I can react to? And it sits behind a wheel in a car. Some people are habitually, they're waiting for the next thing to react to, and you might think it's always another person. That is, everyone to some extent carries that inside. This is not a personal shortcoming of yours. It is not a personal thing at all. It is collective conditioning of the human mind. It is a collective structure. The need to react, the need to have a problem, an enemy somewhere, it's unconscious. When you make it conscious, when it happens, you see it. I'm right. And you feel the emotion that goes with being right. With your partner, wherever. And it's an amazing thing when you watch that in yourself. You can see it in others more easily, of course. Look how unconscious he is. Oh.